Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him.
Welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Friday, September 12th, 2025, the 255th day of the year. That's Utah Governor Spencer Cox, and we go right to Wake Up America for the big breaking news.
We continue with our breaking news coverage as the president just announced moments ago, with a high degree of certainty, police believe they have the assassin of Charlie Kirk in custody.
Yeah, and of course, you're looking at images of that suspect. Those images were released just about 24 hours ago to the public, asking the public's help to identify this man in regards to Charlie Kirk's assassination. And here we are, less than 48 hours removed from when Charlie Kirk's life was taken from him. And again, the president saying they have the suspect in custody. Multiple people, it looks like, recognized who that person was. We are hearing reports that one of the people was the suspect's own father.
We also hearing a pastor might have been involved. There is a news conference scheduled to take place in just about 15 minutes from now at the top of the hour. Kash Patel, the FBI director, is expected to be there as part of that news conference. The FBI has been giving more than a lot of praise for the more than 7,000 pieces of evidence, tips that have come in from the general public. And obviously, if potentially the suspect's father, a pastor, also joined in providing information to help get this suspect into police custody safely rather than having a shootout or him taking his own life. That is going to lead to a lot more answers as police get to interrogate him, find out his motives, find out his plan, and why he did the action that he did Wednesday, taking the life of Charlie.
Yeah, and a remarkable job done there by law enforcement as well, because you look at, the last time the FBI was flooded with this many tips, more than 7,000, was back when they were trying to catch the Boston Marathon bombers in Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, and that dragged on for nearly a week, as we know. So again, here we are just 2 days removed from this incident, and again, they have the man they believe did kill Charlie Kirk in custody after releasing these images to the public just yesterday.
This is Kash Patel at this morning's news conference announcing the arrest of 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Utah.
This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, our partnership has been absolutely incredible these last few days. Our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play, and we will play that role, and we will lead out for the federal government. But Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We utilized these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilized these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport forensic evidence and other evidence that will be analyzed and is being analyzed at our FBI laboratories in Quantico and other laboratories, including the ATF. At my direction, the FBI released the first set of FBI photos of the suspect at 10 a.m. local time on 9/11. Then, shortly thereafter, the FBI reward of $100,000 was released at 10:45 a.m. local. Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m. where at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period. And I want to highlight what Governor Cox said. This would not have been possible without you, the media, and you, the public. That's why we went so public, so fast, and we're so transparent, and we're committed to that transparency.
FBI Director Kash Patel at this morning's FBI news conference laying out some of how it went down. Greg Kelly, who was on the air covering last night's news conference, also paid tribute to Charlie Kirk.
I personally was in awe. I remain in awe of his talent, his intellect, his eloquence. Charlie could speak extemporaneously better than 99.999% of the world could write with the help of computers, ChatGPT, the best research assistants. Here's Charlie answering what for many people would be a very challenging question about, well, I think the question is how much of God is in the Constitution? All right, you're going to hear a smidgen of the question. Some people believe the Constitution, our founding fathers were strong believers in God, and it has to, well, you have to rely on God if the Constitution is to work. That's kind of the question, and look at what Charlie does with it.
Our country was founded on common law because the Declaration only refers to God 4 times in the Constitution. It doesn't refer to God at all, and it only articulates the structure of government. And is common law Christian in nature, or is it not?
I can take it first. So this guy doesn't, whoever said that doesn't really know what they're talking about. So first of all, remember that we were a collection of states and colonies, and you need to read the state constitutions before anything else. 9 out of 13 of the original states required you to be a Bible-believing Christian to serve in government at the time of the founding. You could even in actually 13 out of 13 required a declaration of faith. 9 out of 13 required you to be a Protestant, except Maryland, which was Catholic, which still required a declaration of faith. In almost every single one of the original state constitutions, Pennsylvania included, they had, I profess Lord and Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior in the original state constitutions. So you remember, we're a collection of states before that. Secondly, 55 out of 56 of the original signers of the Declaration were Bible-believing, church-attending Christians. You asked about common law. So common law is inherited from Blackstone, who was Christian. A common law is an outgrowth of the scriptures. So let's go to 3 principles of common law: presumption of innocence, due process, and jury of your peers. All 3 are biblical principles.
I consider myself reasonably well-educated. Who the hell is Blackstone? Charlie was so incredibly talented. An autodidact, right? He taught himself. If you don't mind, I'd like to do a little bit more of Charlie at his very best. And he was always at his best. He was always living his best life, it seemed to me. He continued with his brilliant answer.
So, and all wrapped into the ultimate biblical principle that you shall not favor justice if you are rich or poor, which is in Leviticus 19, right before the most famous part of Leviticus 19, which is that you should love your neighbor as yourself. But before that is that in the administration of justice, you shall not favor the rich or the poor, which is the idea of blind justice. We get that in the West, which is incorporated also in the New Testament ideal: neither slave nor Greek nor Jew, you're all one in Jesus Christ, which we get the idea of human equality. These are all biblical ideas. They're not Enlightenment ideas, which is they kind of get conflated at the time. But more importantly than that, they say that God was only mentioned 4 times in the Declaration of Independence. Well, that's a big deal, okay? Laws of nature and nature's God. The last paragraph of the Declaration reads as a prayer. It says, we appeal to the supreme judge of the universe. Who's the judge of the universe? Jesus Christ, as it says in Revelation, that Jesus will judge the earth on his throne. So in the Declaration, they were praying to Christ our Lord as a prayer very specifically.
There are Supreme Court justices who can't do that. It's truly awe-inspiring and inspiring to learn more, to be more like Charlie, and to do what we can.
That is Greg Kelly, and if you have ever seen or heard Charlie Kirk speak during one of his events, or maybe even in an in-depth TV interview, right? His knowledge was awe-inspiring. It was incredible. I mean, it would be incredible coming from someone, let's say, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, someone who's had decades of obtaining knowledge and learning and reading and absorbing, but he was 31 years old. Incredible. If you happen to be watching the NFL game last night and not watching Newsmax, Green Bay Packers quarterback Jordan Love, who played last night, has already donated more than $300,000 to Charlie Kirk's family. Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills and his wife donating $400,000. TJ Watt of the Steelers has offered to pay for Charlie's kids' college, as have other people. And the contributions are now pouring in. So great to see. And it's a reminder that there are still a lot of really, really good people out there among all of the evil. As I said yesterday, it always takes some kind of evil like that to bring out the best in the rest. President Trump spoke about it as he left Washington to attend the New York Yankees game last night, marking the 24th anniversary of the 9/11 terror attacks.
I spoke to Erica, his wife, and we had a long talk, and she's devastated. She is absolutely devastated, as you can imagine. She was an advocate of nonviolence. That's the way I'd like to see people respond. Really concerned for our country. We have a great country. We have a radical left group of lunatics out there, just absolute lunatics, and we're going to get that problem solved. I'm only concerned for the country.
And his son, Eric Trump, spoke about it with Rob Finnerty.
Can you tell us when you first met Charlie Kirk? When did he first sort of come on the scene for you?
So Charlie's been a friend for well over a decade. He came into my office, I'll never forget, it was 2015, maybe the very beginning of 2016, and he was so young. They only had a couple of chapters, a turning point at that time, but yet he had these kind of aspirations of growing into the greatest youth movement the country has ever seen. He wanted to recapture the hearts and minds of, the youth of this country, which were being so indoctrinated, and just had really, the progressive kind of tendencies of all the schools had taken over their minds, and he wanted to capture them back. And he laid out this plan. I'll never forget it. I'm like, those are lofty goals, and everything he told me, Rob, that he was going to do, the man did. I mean, he did all of it. He accomplished all of it. And, he led an entire generation. In fact, he ended up leading multiple generations. But, he changed the whole tune of these, campuses. He changed the whole attitude of the entire youth vote in this country. I mean, even that last day, you see the amount of people, how they were cheering, how they were throwing hats, how they were thrilled to be engaged in the process of democracy in this country. And we hadn't seen that action in a very long time. I mean, my father did that for the entire country. Charlie certainly did that for the youth vote in this country.
I've heard people say and this sort of thing happens. I didn't realize he was 31. Remarkable how young he was. But I've heard people say that politics was probably in his future. And that could have been at any time. Think about it. 20 years from now, Eric, he'd be 51, still a relatively young man. Do you think that the left changed the course of American history yesterday by killing this man?
Well, there's no question, right? I mean, they always resort to violence. That's the whole point. I mean, you mentioned my book in the intro, but that's what they do. I mean, they try and put you under siege. When they've lost the narrative, right? What do? They resort to violence. I mean, I watched my father almost get assassinated on high definition TV, right? As did the entire nation. I saw him almost get assassinated, a couple months later on a golf course in Florida. We saw what happened to Steve Scalise. We saw what almost happened to a great Supreme Court justice, Kavanaugh, where somebody tried to kill him. And now we saw what happened to Charlie Kirk at this amazing kind of gathering of youth people on a campus, right? And so there's no question he had politics in his future. But what's amazing about Charlie is he built a movement. He built a following. You have so many people who will try and go and they'll try and go run for Congress when they're 24 years old, 25 years old, and most of them they're just not old enough to do it. And they haven't. I mean, he built a following that would follow him to the end of earth because he did it well. I mean, everywhere, Rob, I went in the country, whether it was on real estate, whether it was for politics, everywhere I went, I saw Charlie. I mean, that guy burned through shoes. He was in a different state every single day. He worked 7 days a week. I mean, politics wasn't only his job. Turning Point wasn't only kind of the organization he wanted to build, but it was also his hobby. It wasn't 9 to 5 for him. It was a 7-day-a-week thing, and there's no question. I mean, there was no one smarter. There was no one that could debate him. He had incredible conviction, even around topics that are often kind of tiptoed around by so many modern day politicians.
Yeah.
Isn't
that, by the way, Eric? Isn't that funny? You can laugh about it now. I was thinking about it yesterday. They shot this guy. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a conventional celebrity. Okay, like Martin Luther King Jr., who was not a politician or a conventional celebrity, but he had such an impact. Martin Luther King Jr., also in his 30s when he was gunned down by an assassin's bullet in 1968. Charlie Kirk had a following that is absolutely undeniable. But what was his crime? Was his crime saying that perhaps men shouldn't be playing in women's sports? Was he so controversial that they had to permanently silence this man forever? And I'll just say that when Bobby Kennedy, JFK, and MLK, when they were killed, there was no social media. People didn't have cell phones in their pocket. Now we do. And this is some of the reaction that we've had over the last 24 hours. This was TMZ yesterday afternoon. Take a look.
Janet, go to have somebody look at the Fox. Trump just posted that Charlie Kirk is dead.
All right, so is this ready to pull the trigger when you get Trump cut in a second?
And that kind of stuff was everywhere. People cheering after finding out that somebody had been assassinated in public in front of 3,000 people on camera.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said it best, right? You had MSNBC who literally came out and, called him right-wing activist because he didn't think that it was okay for, I mean, he questioned why so many transgender people are committing the school shootings in this country. And, whether it's okay if a guy like me, right, I'm 6'5", I weigh 215 pounds, get to swim in collegiate sports against, women that weigh 140 pounds, right? And
Right.
I mean, he has the audacity to question things like that and, loves God, loves the flag, loves the country, loves family, believes in the family unit, believes in having no crime on our streets, but yet, he's very far wing according to MSNBC. I mean, it's tragic. And
Eric Trump, Executive Vice President of the Trump Organization, on Finnerty. And for more on the response and reaction from the left, we go to the Chris Salcedo Show.
24 years ago today, the very foundation of our nation was attacked. Those with hatred of our nation unleashed a planned and calculated attack onto our people. Information is now coming out that key elements in our own government had foreknowledge of the terrorist attacks. That same uncaring mentality seems to be at play now, as those who are supposed to be protecting us from violent, hate-filled leftists are busy surrendering us to them. And again, Americans are dying. America versus the left. That's my focus in today's preamble. As was the case with 9/11, our enemies have been and still are at war with Americans. President Trump addressed the nation from the Oval Office to identify the enemy responsible for the latest casualty in this war, Charlie Kirk.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives.
Leftists here at home showed their true colors yesterday as House Democrats objected to a prayer request after the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk.
The chair lays before the House a communication. The House will be in order. Thank you all.
And leftists abroad and the European Parliament showed their disdain for America as they too refused a moment of silence after the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said any foreign students celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk will be banned. I would suggest the State Department and the Secretary look at all those leftist countries there represented in the European Parliament. They might deserve some scrutiny. Back here at home, despite what you're hearing, both sides are not killing each other to silence political views. The volume of attacks against conservatives and the severity of those attacks far outweighs any attacks on leftists that can be credibly attributed to anybody on the right. But despite this, we are told by so-called Republicans like Liz Cheney, Don Bacon, Paul Ryan, Lisa Murkowski, Mitch McConnell, and others of their kind that we must move on and that we must lock arms with the very leftists who are fueling and encouraging the violence against Americans.
Chris Salcedo, host of the Chris Salcedo Show, now at 5 p.m. Eastern, don't forget, followed by Frontline with Carl Higbie at 6. Carl, a retired Navy SEAL and combat veteran, of course, talked a lot about 9/11 and Charlie Kirk.
You know, it's okay to be angry, especially today on 9/11. Look, if you love this country, if you love our culture and our way of life, I'd expect you to be angry, especially today. Not only for yesterday or for 12 years ago or for 24 years ago, but it appears we have a nation collectively have forgotten. Like, I'm angry about all that evil. I don't really care that modern society says anger is bad, but good people get angry when bad things happen to good people.
Billowing out right now. We have.
And you can see the two towers, a huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
He's alive. He's alive. The crowd cheers. God is great.
It was only hours later that his body was pulled out of that same window by a crowd.
Counting or not counting gang violence? Great.
Oh my God. Bad people cause or are happy when bad things happen to good people. We saw those bad people celebrating yesterday's assassination. We saw bad countries celebrating the attack on our embassy in Benghazi 12 years ago, which I've hardly seen any mention about today, of which then the Secretary of State tried to tell us not to be concerned about it. And we saw even more bad people cheering. Yeah, this happened here in America 24 years ago. When those planes hit those towers, we should be angry when our way of life is threatened. But I'm peaceful. You can do both. And I told you after Trump got shot that it was us versus them, good versus bad, evil versus the peaceful. And the evil's pushing pretty hard right now. But there's a difference between peaceful and helpless. Being peaceful is only possible if you're capable of great violence. If you're not capable of great violence, you're helpless. Those people, and those people doing the most damage right now, especially here in America, they're hiding behind the banner and the protection of peaceful, but they're actually helpless. They can only do and say the horrible things that they do because of people like me who choose to be peaceful. Peaceful is a choice of hard men who keep the evil and the helpless safe and allow them to spew that hate that they do until our patience runs out. 9/11 tested that theory, and America was no longer peaceful after that. Now, look, you can agree or disagree with the Iraq War. Lord knows I think it became a disaster. But you cannot deny the effects of what happens when we choose not to be peaceful. After people who believed in the self-proclaimed religion of peace killed 3,000 Americans here in New York, we, who had chosen to be peaceful up until then, destroyed and conquered the world's 5th largest army in less than 5 days. When America chose to not to be peaceful, we rolled over a global power in like less time than it takes my grass seed to sprout. And they became helpless real quick. But now we have fellow citizens pushing that envelope.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country.
Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
If we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Take him out now.
Okay. When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
I have thought an awful lot
about blowing up the White House.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Democrats want to see someone get up there and give a knuckle sandwich to Donald Trump.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
So this is just a warning to you Trumpers. Be careful. Walk lightly. And for those of you who are soldiers, make them pay.
You have to be ready to throw a punch.
Those people are helpless. That's the evil, though, claiming to be peaceful, that got us to yesterday. Saying horrible things under the protection of peaceful, then pretending to decry the violence that comes in the wake of those horrible things that they say, carried out by someone who likely believes the same message they do. I mean, today's a tough one for me, because that evil, domestically and foreign, is why I went to war. It's why I dropped out of college to go to war, to ensure that people like Charlie Kirk had the ability to speak freely and safely.
Former Navy SEAL and host of Frontline, Carl Higbie. Don't forget, again, Frontline now at 6 p.m. Eastern. In other news, President Trump is now sending the National Guard into Memphis, Tennessee. And the Secret Service agent who is possibly responsible for saving President Trump's life took the stand at the trial of Ryan Ruth in Florida yesterday. The Secret Service agent testified that he was only 5 feet away from Ruth when he noticed the rifle sticking out of the hedges. Ruth, who's representing himself, forfeited his opening statement and was reprimanded by the judge. Trump appointed Eileen Cannon. She had to reprimand Ruth more than once for not staying on topic. The trial continues today. Ruth does face a maximum sentence of life in prison. In the UK, Ambassador to the United States Peter Mendelsohn has been fired for his recently confirmed links to Jeffrey Epstein. On Wall Street, stocks opened mixed this morning. The Dow and S&P in the red. The Nasdaq was higher after a huge rally yesterday. Stocks starting out this morning at record highs. The Dow gained more than 600 points yesterday, closing above 46,000 for the first time ever. If you're shopping for a home this weekend, mortgage rates are at the lowest they've been in more than a year, and the Federal Reserve is almost certain to cut interest rates next week, so perhaps it's time to start getting serious. And Dale Earnhardt Jr., in a tearful speech, called on NASCAR and its fans to observe a moment of silence in memory of Charlie Kirk at this weekend's events in Bristol. Be sure to keep up with all of today's news and breaking developments on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. It is going to be a super busy day focused on learning more about the suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Utah, potential motives, his history, about the weapons, all those things of the sort. Don't forget about the Wake Up America Weekend Edition, Saturday and Sunday report, Sunday agenda, America Right Now, Tom Basile, Lydia Serrani, Rita Cosby, Rob Astorino, Michael Savage with the Savage Nation on Sunday night, Wendy Bell, Ambassador Nancy Brinker, documentaries, special programming, and much more all weekend long. I'm Tony Marino. Try and enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend. Pay attention and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.